Deborah walked out of the office with a weary gait. It was getting dark outside, and she hurried home. For the past 10 years, she had been taking care of her sick mother-in-law. Deborah was a primary school teacher at a boarding school, dealing with challenging children and complicated life stories. Many of them had never experienced care or maternal affection, so she tried her best to be more humane and kind. However, the domestic responsibilities demanded her last bit of energy, despite the nerve-wracking tension. Her husband's ailing mother, Irma, was not an easy woman to deal with. Their only adult son, Kevin, had been living and working in another city for a long time. Her husband was a calm person and always tried to reconcile them with his mother. Irma rented out her apartment to tenants and gave the money to her son. At least that's what Deborah thought. And today had been an especially challenging day at work. The foster parents returned one of the children to the second group. It was such a psychological trauma for the boy, and it would take him a long time to recover from the stress. Deborah, more than anyone else, knew how much effort would be needed to bring him back to a normal life. That's why she stayed late at work. 8-year-old Lucas cried incessantly on her shoulder after the second shift lesson. I thought I wouldn't come back here. I wanted to study harder to make them happy, to make them proud of me. But they said I was stupid. And they probably inherited bad genes from alcoholic parents, and that all the children here are sick and mentally disabled, her student recounted through tears. Don't cry, they're wrong, you know that. They're just mean and impatient people. Most of them are like that nowadays. Calm down. And you can study well and diligently, but do it for yourself. At the school they sent me to, there are really cool kids. They come with expensive phones and tablets. And the teachers there are unfair to kids like me. Their cruel teasing is a normal thing there. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't study well. All right, come on, stop crying. Let's go wash up. You're home now. Every time after such incidents, Deborah's kind heart ached. She quietly opened the apartment door and listened. Apparently, her husband wasn't home, and her mother-in-law was speaking loudly on the phone with someone. But when Deborah heard a certain phrase, she didn't reveal her presence and stopped in the hallway, closer to the room. You know what a failure our Deborah is. We were at the notary's office yesterday. Did Kimberly tell you? So, where's her gratitude? Yes, that's right. The current daughter-in-law takes care of everything, cooking and providing. No, I don't help her, she manages on her own. Her salary isn't enough even for the essentials. Franklin, my son, provides for her. You missed out on your happiness. And she's holding on to him tightly. From the beginning of the conversation, Deborah knew who her mother-in-law was talking to. She was Franklin's second wife. His first wife, Linda, tormented him with constant complaints and baseless jealousy, but she had a character similar to Irma, and they got along well. However, Irma never took a liking to Deborah from day one. She accused her of luring Franklin away from the family. Although, judging by everything, he was happy to escape from his hysterical ex-wife. They got married due to the first fiancé's pregnancy. It was the cunning mother-in-law and her friend, Miranda, the future mother-in-law, who made a great effort. And 5 months later, their daughter Kimberly was born. The young couple lacked understanding, respect, and support. That's why meeting Franklin and Deborah became true happiness. It was a discovery for Deborah that her mother-in-law had already managed to transfer the apartment as an inheritance to her beloved granddaughter, who hadn't worked anywhere. Do I not give you enough money each month for your needs? Irma continued. Well, this is interesting, thought the daughter-in-law. I had no idea she was also giving them money. What about my son? He was left without an inheritance. And I foolishly tried so hard to please her. I took care of her while she was bedridden, cared for her, and there's no gratitude at all. Her mother-in-law had long regained her strength, but continued to live off others. Meanwhile, she complained to us about her weakness and dizziness. It was hurtful and painful to tears. She turned out to be so cruel, unfair, and ungrateful. But being a wise woman, Deborah didn't start a scene. Instead, she made a plan and went to prepare the meal. "Hello, everyone," her husband's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I'm home. Let's go have dinner, Franklin," his wife called him to the table. He was telling a story, sitting at the table and enjoying the fried potatoes with meat when his mother entered the kitchen. "I don't eat fried food," she began with a complaint. "I know," the daughter-in-law replied. "You're home all day, and I thought you had already eaten. That's why I only cooked for Franklin and me." "I haven't had a good dinner in so long." Her husband reached for his cup of tea. Deborah watched as her mother-in-law choked on her own anger and deliberately left the kitchen. "Did you two have an argument again?" Her husband looked at her. "No. But I need to talk to you. It's awkward to bring up such a conversation, but it seems your mother is supporting both Kimberly and your ex-wife, Linda." And without hesitation, she transferred the apartment to them. "Did you know?" "How could I have known? She does whatever she wants and doesn't consult with anyone. You know, darling, your mother has fully recovered but continues to take advantage of our care. Such injustice has been bothering me for a long time. Let's do something about it, or you talk to her and make her do what's right. Remember how much we endured until Kevin finished school? He studied on his own, got into university on his own. I even had a hemorrhage, and we lost a child 9 years ago, and I didn't even go to the hospital then because who would take care of your bedridden mother? You were always at work. If you don't remember, I sacrificed everything. And you just kept saying, just bear with it. She's a living person. Have pity on her. Well, I don't need her or her apartment, but it's heartbreaking for our son. And I already know what I'm going to do. I'll take custody of the child or adopt him. I've wanted to do it for a long time, ever since we lost our child. So many unfortunate children are deprived of parental care. If it weren't for your bedridden mother. As it turns out, she's not as sick as we thought," Deborah said, choking on the betraying tears she finally let flow. "We have raised a wonderful son. And that means I can raise Lucas too. It's just that he won't have a peaceful life in an orphanage. We need to save him." Franklin tenderly embraced Deborah, and she trustingly rested her head on his shoulder, feeling a little calmer. "You know, my dear, I will always support you. Well, forgive my mother. I know how much she can hurt without even realizing it." "Tell me more about Lucas," Franklin requested. "He's the dark-eyed boy who was taken into that wealthy family a month ago, right?" "Yes, that's him. Those inexperienced wealthy parents took the boy in, and yesterday they returned him without any explanation. They said they didn't want him." "Then let's really give him a home," Franklin suggested. Deborah held onto her husband tightly. "You know, I never doubted you. I love you. And I also know that I should thank not your mother but you for being a good husband." "Ah, I see. You should always bring flowers to your mother-in-law's grave, your own mother-in-law. Because I was raised by my grandmother, my father's mother. Now, let's get to the point. What do we need to do to take Lucas with us soon? After all, you've been working there for many years." And they quietly began discussing their future actions. "But what about me?" asked the mother-in-law when Lucas came to their apartment for the first time, feeling shy and blushing. "Well, you see, Mom," Deborah replied, "you not only have your own apartment, but also a beloved granddaughter who has never visited you since your stroke in the hospital. She didn't come here after you were discharged, when Franklin and I took turns feeding you with a spoon and changing your diapers. But thanks to our care, you recovered in 3 years. By the way, Mom, we're not kicking you out, but we'll all have to make some adjustments. Lucas will be living with us." The mother-in-law started making phone calls and packing her things into a large suitcase, but she never left. As it turned out, Kimberly quickly moved into the grandmother's apartment, evicting the tenants, and started looking for clients to sell the grandmother's living space. The mother-in-law started calling her daughter, Kimberly, complaining about Deborah, but she refused to take Irma in and rudely asked her not to call anymore. The young woman had no use for the grandmother. Now it's time for the mother-in-law to be bitterly disappointed and cry with frustration. She stayed with her son's family. Where else could she go? She couldn't live at the train station. It so happened that Lucas and his mother-in-law spent a lot of time together while Franklin and his wife were at work, and they even became friends after a while. "Grandma, let me show you to the kitchen. Please, have a seat. Let me make you some tea. And I'll peel the potatoes for the soup myself, don't worry." The boy melted his mother-in-law's heart with his childlike sincerity, his desire to please, and his eagerness to be liked. "Did you do your homework, my little helper?" she asked sternly. "Yes, Grandma. We didn't have much. Mom will check everything when she comes home from work." "Let me check it for you. Mom will want to relax, I think. She has her own lessons, notebooks, and annoying students." The grandmother resigned herself, calmed down, and even started helping Deborah with the household chores. And the boy would often give his grandmother a tender hug before bedtime, wishing her a good night. To which she, hiding tears of affection, would say, "Go to sleep now, my grandson." To the surprise of the entire family, including Kevin, who had come to visit, Irma no longer acted capricious. "Mom," Kevin said softly, "has no one ever told you that you're a gifted educator? I thought Grandma couldn't be changed. You and Dad did a great job. I believe everything will work out with Lucas. He's adorable and has become friends with Grandma." Kevin didn't come home for no reason. You see, his mother-in-law decided, exercising her right and hiring a good lawyer, to rewrite her will in favor of her grandson, taking a promise from Deborah that they wouldn't mistreat Lucas if they ever decided to sell her 2-bedroom apartment in the city center. "It's all about fairness," said the grandmother after visiting the notary, handing the will over to Franklin. "Please forgive me, my dear children. And where is my beloved grandson? I bought his favorite cake. Put the kettle on and call Lucas." "Listen, Mom, I never thought something like this would happen. Our grandma, she's like a different person. Turns out, kindness triumphs not only in fairy tales," Kevin quietly said to his mother. "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, my dear," he said louder.